You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Inside the Fox 59 CBS 4 podcast studio, welcome to another Colts Blue Zone podcast. Alongside Mike Chappell and Joe Hopkins, I'm Dave Griffiths. The whole band is back together once again today as it is Patriots week for the Horseshoe. They'll travel to Foxborough to take on the Patriots. We've got an injury update, keys to the game. We'll make some predictions, but first we start with the news. This trade deadline week in the NFL.
There's always news with the Colts.
There is.
Always.
And that's a bad thing.
Yes, it is.
During the season, that is not good. We don't want lengthy rundown here in the news
The
department.
news you're hoping for, like, is AFC Player of the Week
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Player of the Month. Not what we're getting.
No. This week, a couple moves as the Colts have fired offensive coordinator Marcus Brady and traded away running back Nyheim Hines to the Buffalo Bills. And they get a conditional 5th or 6th round draft pick and running back Zach Moss from Buffalo there. So, Chap, some big changes for the offense coming up this week, you would think. Well, maybe not big changes. You'd expect to see the same offense, same type of offense. And it's just, they're big changes behind the scenes. When you lose the offensive coordinator, you lose one of your offensive playmakers. And for an offense that has been struggling to find its way, and that's the only way this happens in the middle of the season, but you lose your coordinator, you lose one of your big playmakers as you're really trying to become a better version of yourself here as we're halfway through the season.
Yeah, I think if you didn't know that Marcus Brady was fired, you won't see a difference offensively. This is more, because this is Frank Reich's offense. It simply is. He is the offensive coordinator. Where you're gonna where the change will be felt is internally, where all of a sudden Scotty Montgomery, the running backs coach, is more of the face of the offense. We talked to him today, and he'll like be the guy that leads the meeting. But they're just kind of spreading out Marcus Brady's responsibilities. Nyheim Hines, it's hard to figure out the basis of this, other than Nyheim didn't argue against the trade. Let's put it that way.
Right.
He didn't demand a trade, I don't think. Now, he may have said, I wouldn't mind a trade. Mm-hmm. But getting back to 5th or a 6th, Joe's the draft guy. Maybe he sees value in 5s and 6s. What was Hines? Hines was a 4.
He was a 4 when he was taken out of NC State.
But it's almost more like they're doing Nyheim a favor. It seems like, I mean, really, he's going from
he's in a better place now.
That sounds terrible. I mean, normally that's the place where someone has left us. You know what I mean? But he has. I mean, he goes from 3-4-1 to the Super Bowl favorite. Now, it's funny. I won't mention the player, but we were walking, Joel Erickson and I were walking into the locker room today, and Joel mentioned how, I'm not sure Nyheim's going to get the touches he anticipates or wants in Buffalo because of the way they spread the ball around, and they don't feature the running backs that much as far as running the ball. And some players said, yeah, there you guys go, more or less bad mouthing, and he'll be great there. Whatever. But he's going from a team going nowhere to a team that very well could be going to the Super Bowl. So kudos to Nyheim Hines.
The other side, it's Zach Moss going from a team that could very well go to the Super Bowl to the Colts. I mean, oof. And to his credit, he was asked that in the locker room today, kind of about that dynamic, and he gave a very well-reasoned answer and saying, shoot, there's 9 games left in the season, there's a lot to do, and once you get to the playoffs, then it's a clear, level playing field. So that it was the company line that he took.
Good for him.
Yes, exactly.
Let's talk to him in a month and see how he's feeling.
See how he feels there. But Nyheim Hines this year, Joe, he has a career average of 4 yards per carry. Has never been below 3.7. That was his rookie year. The last 2 years, 4.3. Excuse me. Oh, my goodness. Excuse me. 4.3, 4.9. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I had the Pop-Tart, shoved it down right before we went on. Got to tide myself over till after the podcast. But this year, 2 yards per carry for Nyheim Hines.
18 carries, 36 yards, right?
18 carries, 36 yards, 2 yards per carry. Receiving is about the same, 7.5 yards per reception, which is a little bit over his career average, actually. He has 25 catches about halfway through the year. So he's on pace for right around 50, which would be between his 60 or 40, those 2 back-and-forth years he's had. But certainly in the run game has been less dynamic. And Frank talked about it, saying that he was when he was playing, the 3rd most touches after Jonathan Taylor and after Michael Pittman. So if you look in the level Joe of touches. That's probably about what we would expect preseason, but it's just the overall production that's not there, and it's not necessarily Nyheim. It's the entire offense has been lacking this year, and now he gets the chance to spread his wings elsewhere.
Yeah, I think the overall kind of point is more so the Colts were never able to maximize his talents, and it felt like they never reached the ceiling with Nyheim.
Remember,
Hines.
Frank, in May, if I played fantasy, I'd think about drafting Nyheim Hines.
His fantasy record might be worse than the Colts record right now.
Yikes.
But you're right. They just never found a way to maximize what Nyheim offered.
And here's where I get the chance to say, once again, it all comes back to Carson Wentz. Like, there were, like, Frank and Marcus Brady, who is now fired, really were very direct, without being entirely direct, saying it themselves, that those plays were there for Nyheim Hines last year. They were there. He just didn't get the ball.
And all that indicated was that Wentz didn't get him the ball.
Everything indicated that it was on Carson Wentz. And that was what they wanted you to say. That's what Chris Ballard wanted you to think when they got rid of him, too.
That's what the owner wanted you to think.
That's what the owner wanted to think when the Colts got rid of him, too, that this was all Carson Wentz. You get a new quarterback in here, then Nyheim Hines can get the ball, the offense can take off, can be more what we want. That is just not the case.
I want to argue with you so much, and I can't.
But you can't.
I can't.
That's the thing.
No mas.
I think at this point, like you could be the most vigorous Carson Wentz lover or the most staunch Carson Wentz hater, and you can come to the same conclusion about Nyheim Hines, that it was not Carson Wentz's fault. Because this year he's not getting the ball either. There's been a problem with getting him the ball in the right space at the right time to do what he is able to do. That we
sort of saw that last week where they finally started to do it with the wheel route for the 20-some yards and then the touchdown, few and far between.
Yeah. And finally got to see Paris Campbell a little bit of what he can do. I was happy to see Paris.
Since we're on Nyheim Hines, and we talked about this in the offseason, one thing that was going to impact Nyheim Hines more than anybody else was Paris Campbell. And an emerging Paris Campbell, his snaps in the slot were going to take away from Nyheim Hines. And a lot of it is the overall offensive inefficiency, but some of it is Paris Campbell taking Nyheim Hines' snaps.
I think that's a really good point. Really good point. And so for whoever gets to design the offense, which is still mostly Frank Reich, and then you throw in Scotty Montgomery there, they'll try to improve the offense without one of their best playmakers now. It was averaging 16.1 points per game, tied for first in turnovers with 16 on the year. And like I said, they'll have to do it without one of the guys that they thought was one of the biggest playmakers. But Chap, I think that this decision from the Colts to let go of Marcus Brady also sheds light on the entire offensive staff as a whole. And as we have said, pretty much since week 3, when we got a clear picture of the team and the offense, if there's one area of this team that is struggling, it's the offensive line. If there's one area of this team that is performing below expectations, it's the group that Chris Strasser leads. Chris Strasser still has a job. Marcus Brady doesn't. And you could easily see why that you see. The "see" is not the right word. You can easily draw the conclusion that Brady is being a scapegoat for the offensive line's troubles. And I think you could easily draw the conclusion, logically, if you're a Colts fan, that if the offensive line was fixed, the offense as a whole would be better. So Brady wouldn't be the one facing the chopping block. It would be no one would be, because the offensive line would be better. So why is it that Chris Strasser still has a job here? These are questions that are kind of piling up after you see a guy like Marcus Brady hit the road.
Well, Zach Kiefer asked the question Wednesday about basically how does the offensive line coach still have a job, and Frank said, I have confidence in him. And he's coached a lot of good offensive line play. That's past tense.
Right.
And he said how we're seeing better and better the last couple of weeks. Well, that's kind of by increments, because it's not like they blew Washington off the ball. 3rd and 1 at the goal line, and Quentin Nelson falls down,
straight down, boom, to the ground,
and Taylor gets hammered in the backfield. So yeah, it's and he was even asked about was Marcus Brady scapegoated, and he said, I understand how that perception could be that. Well, yeah, we understand how that can be that.
Right.
So that's why, and again, Frank was not going to share internally the reasons. That's fine. That's fine. But when you don't, it just leaves so much for interpretation and speculation, most of the time probably wrong. But when you're not transparent about why you did things, even if you're trying to soften, and they softened by saying that the Colts have relieved him of his duties. No, they fired him.
Just say it.
Just
all
say
know
it. It's yeah. So, but we'll see. I don't think we're going to see a difference offensively. Well, that's not. I hope we see a difference offensively. I'm sorry. It's status quo. But I don't think wherever they go from here, I just don't believe it's going to be because Marcus Brady's gone. That's just crazy. Because he was the coordinator last year, and they were was it 9th or 10th in scoring, and they
They're one of the best first quarter teams in the league,
right?
Like a top 3 first quarter team.
And by
in
the
the
way,
league.
they've not scored on their opening possession this year.
Not once.
10 games in a row. And I looked it up, the 42 points in the first half. It's the fourth fewest in franchise history. Not Colts Indy history, but Colts history. So it's not gone right. And I always default, probably wrongly, I guess, I don't know, because I try to simplify it, but it defaults to the offensive line. I thought Frank called a pretty darn good game against Washington. But when your left guard doesn't make a block on the goal line and your franchise running back fumbles the ball at the 25 or 26 going in, and when your quarterback fumbles around the same place.
And he just dropped it. Nobody touched him.
Because initially you thought, sack fumble. No, it was a fumble sack. Mm-hmm. And then Michael Pittman drops the ball with 22 seconds to play on maybe the best throw of Ellinger's day. And Pitt gets to, the 50. And then one more pass, and you got McLaughlin with the thunder leg. So it defaults to the offensive line until they get the offensive line fixed to where it's at least reliable. I don't know what the word is, just mediocre. This offense is going to struggle.
Quick side note there. Like, I really wish we had gotten the chance to talk to Michael Pittman Jr. after the game, but he was gone by the time we got in the locker room, and I haven't seen him in the locker room this week.
Nate Atkins talked to him.
Oh, okay.
From the start, talked to him yesterday.
He must have gotten in right at the end.
Yeah, I think he did. I think he did. I think he was the only one. And Pitt said, I dropped it. I cost it. And, hey, if I catch it, changes probably aren't made. So, and again, he had the fumble at the end of the Tennessee game.
Yep.
Although, if I remember, that was not as hurtful because they were down 2 scores, and I don't think there was a lot of time left. Mm-hmm. This one's different. You need your unquestioned star receiver to make that catch, give your quarterback a chance to do another 7 to 10 yard out, and then put it in the hands of the kicker. And whatever Chase McLaughlin can do, he kicks long field goals. He's he's missed one all year, I think. So that's remember they go back to saying we didn't want Ellinger to have to play hero ball. Well, all of his stars around him did something wrong at certain points.
Joe, when we look at this offense as a whole and the fact that Brady is gone now, I think, like looking back just 2 years ago, you can look in hindsight and say, I think we, as the media or as Colts Nation, underestimated the impact of Nick Sirianni on this team a little bit. He goes to Philadelphia, and then you think maybe he's in over his head there. But now he's the master of that city right after the Phillies, and the Colts are moving on from his replacement there at offensive coordinator.
Yeah, Sirianni gets poached from the team, and then the offense is kind of. It's just so perplexing because, like Mike mentioned, they had a top 10 scoring offense last season.
Yeah, even with Brady. Yes, exactly.
Offensive line is. Other than left tackle, where we were complaining about Eric Fisher last year, and then now all of a sudden.
You'd take him back.
It'd be nice.
In a heartbeat.
Yes.
But it's not just left tackle. Quentin Nelson is not playing well at all, and he's getting, $20 million a year? All of a sudden, the Colts have a lot of contracts that I think most people would be trying to get out of right now. I think that was the prime motivation behind Nyheim Hines. We haven't really talked about what the Colts are getting back as much. The NFL is not a business of just doing people favors. They didn't trade Nyheim Hines because of a favor. They traded Nyheim Hines because in some way they thought this would be a good strategy for building a better football team down the road. I was kind of surprised when they re-signed him in the first place, knowing that they had a long list of other players they needed to re-sign. Some of them, like Leonard and Braden Smith and Quentin, have gotten those, and others like Taylor and Pittman are due this coming off season. So In terms of Brady, I think it's just a few months early because I think this coaching staff is probably going to get the axe after this year. But it's just, this is the kind of thing that happens when there's expectations and they're not met.
What does Hancock Health's membership in the Mayo Clinic Care Network mean for you? It means our independent health network now has access to the knowledge and resources of the world leader in medicine. It means your Hancock Health doctor can now consult with Mayo Clinic specialists to confirm a diagnosis or treatment plan. And it means that together, we're making health possible for you. Learn more about our new clinical collaboration at hancockregional.org/Mayo Clinic. The Indianapolis Colts travel to Foxborough to take on the New England Patriots this weekend, revisiting the rivalry there in Gillette Stadium. Injury report first. Colts have 2 players that are out this week for sure, in Ashton Doolin and Matt Ryan. Ashton's still on injured reserve with his foot. Ryan's still not doing anything with his shoulder injury. So you remain 1-2, Sam Ehlinger and Nick Foles at quarterback. We go to the injury report for Wednesday's practice. Beyond that, a bunch of players did not participate. We'll talk first. Zach Moss didn't participate Wednesday, but he was out there on Thursday, just getting to here to town and getting a physical and all that. Yannick Ngakoue was just a rest. But after that, a bunch of players did not participate, including Jonathan Taylor with his ankle injury. And Chap, he wasn't out there again on Thursday as we taped this podcast, at least for the media, the portion that's open to the media. A couple people tweeting that he wasn't there. Our very own photographer, Brett Bensley, out there as well, confirming that. So Jonathan Taylor, once again, is in very much real danger of missing this weekend's game in New England.
I sort of think they're going to give him a week to get better, and not 100%, but better. We talked to Scotty Montgomery, and he said, the last time these players were totally healthy was like before training camp. But I just think with a running back and it's an ankle and you rest it, and he goes out there and cuts or gets twisted, and then you're back to where you were. I would be very surprised if he plays this week. I really would. I just think they want to try to give him an extra week to just let it calm down and whatever they can do. And then try it against the Raiders, and maybe he twists it again. I mean, I think that's the injury you're going to have that's going to hurt him all year. The one I'm curious about is we'll see the practice report later. Dennis Kelly at left tackle. Mm-hmm. He's got a calf and an ankle. Didn't practice yesterday. If he doesn't go, I think he's played okay. There have been a couple times he's gotten.
Zach Kiefer tweeted, "No Dennis Kelly at practice."
Yeah, that's just not a good thing.
No.
It's just not a good thing.
You finally found someone at left tackle who was doing a decent job.
Serviceable. I
Yes.
mean, yeah. And now I assume you go back to Bernhard Raimann. So it's just not. You keep thinking, the Patriots aren't great. It's not a great team. They're having their own troubles, and if you play well, but we'll get to the keys and all that.
What evidence would suggest that they're going to do that right now?
Because Marcus Brady's gone.
Yeah.
Because Nyheim Hines is gone. So we'll see. But the injuries, one thing is, Kwity Paye maybe comes back. Maybe.
He looked healthy on Wednesday when I was out there watching.
The only thing is he's not practiced for 3 weeks.
Right. Yeah, he's been out for
it was a Denver game, right?
Yeah,
the Denver
so it's been
game.
like 3.5 weeks, with that Thursday night.
It's seldom, it seems to me, that a player misses extended time, practices 3 times and then plays, but they need it with, we didn't mention in the news, but Tyquan Lewis.
Yep.
Done. And I'm telling you, that's huge. He's not a great player, but he's a very good player. And that's not meant as a slap at all. And with him out of the rotation, I think Gus Bradley said today that he's fixed Dio to play a lot more. Mm-hmm. He sees him coming on, but Tyquan Lewis, you just hate that because he's such a good kid and he's just a good rotational player that can play all 4 spots on the line, and his absence will be felt.
2 different years for Tyquan Lewis. Halloween weekend, torn pectoral. Not pec, sorry, it's torn patella. I'm an idiot. Excuse me. Torn patella tendon on each knee. One knee last year, one knee this year. And at that, this year, he does so rushing the passer on the play that Darius Leonard intercepted. Last year, it was Darius Leonard rushing the passer on the pass that he intercepted. Like, life is stupidly cyclical and horrifically, in this case, for Tyquan Lewis, who is once again as Chap mentioned, having a very productive year as
On a contract year.
defensive end, as a contract year. He got a contract. He was like a 1-year, stay healthy, prove it deal. It might be the same exact thing for him next year.
And they'll do it.
And I think they will. Yeah, they should do it. Go ahead.
But from his point, he would have gotten a new contract, but now it's going to be, again, 1 year prove it instead of
3 years or 2
3
years.
years and some
10, 15
and some money involved.
Yeah.
So it's just awful. And injuries are part of the game, but you just hate to see, up until now, with Paris Campbell, you just really felt for the guy, got one thing after the other. But with Tyquan, and again, Patella's on different knees, and it's just, you just really hate to see it.
Yeah, let's get to some more on the injury report. Stephon Gilmore did not practice on Wednesday with a rib injury. He was dressed up, at least in the locker room today, and we spoke with him about his return to New England. That might be more of a rest thing than an actual serious thing. We'll see as the more injury reports come out. Cornerback Tony Brown, a hamstring injury. Linebacker, Grant Stewart out with a pectoral injury, the special teamer. Limited in practice on Wednesday was Kwity Paye. We talked about him already with his ankle injury, and center Ryan Kelly, who's been on the injury report weekly with his knee injury, was a limited participant in practice on Wednesday. Full participant DeForest Buckner with a shoulder. His elbow isn't even listed there, which is encouraging to say the least. And linebacker E.J. Speed, full participant with an ankle injury. E.J. Speed, one of the more underrated players for the Colts this year. He's had, Joe, a couple really big plays. You're your guy, so yeah. you get the floor to talk about E.J. Speed a bit.
Now it's finally coming together, coming from a very small school, terrific athlete, and then, he's just developed over the years into a very nice linebacker just in time because I believe it's a contract year for him as well.
Ruled out for the Patriots, nobody as of right now. From their Wednesday participant practice report, they have center David Andrews, who missed last week's game against the Jets as well. Wide receiver Devontae Parker has a knee injury. He left that Jets game with a sprained knee, so that's certainly something to watch for. Running back Damian Harris was listed as an illness, missed Wednesday's practice. And safety Devin McCourty, not injury related.
Yeah, and I didn't write it down here, but Andrews was a concussion, so we'll see if he's able to clear the protocol in time.
Limited participant Christian Barmore, the defensive tackle, hasn't played since week 6, but now is limited participant, so that's probably encouraging for them with a knee injury. Defensive end Deatrick Wise with an ankle. Linebacker Josh Uche with a hamstring. Safety Kyle Duggar, ankle injury, who missed the Jets game last week. Safety Adrian Phillips with a shoulder injury. Running back Pierre Strug Jr. hamstring. Special teamer Matthew Slater with a hamstring. So that's their entire injury reports. Quite a few players are limited participant, but not too many there listed out. But with a center there, it's a key cog of the offensive line with Devontae Parker and Damian Harris, two guys, Joe, who are two of the more, especially Parker, maybe one of the more guys who can take the top off the defense for a team that doesn't seem to have all that many super big explosive weapons. They'd certainly feel a lot better if they had some offensive stars on the field this weekend.
Yeah, he's a guy who can get down the field and catch jump balls for Mac Jones, or if Jones gets benched again, Bailey Zappi, whoever happens to be out there.
Western Kentucky pride.
That's right, the Hilltoppers. But, we'll just have to keep an eye on those because Andrews and Parker would be significant. Damian Harris, illness, you kind of figure that, give him a few days, he'll probably suit up for this one. Same with McCourty, not injury-related. So nothing super major, but you look at that defensive front with Barmore and Deatrick Wise. We'll see if they're able to go. If they weren't for some reason, despite being just limited, that would be significant because both of them are major contributors on that front for Belichick.
The Colts are 3-4-1. The Patriots are 4-4. Two teams having pretty similar seasons record-wise. 1:00 kickoff will be broadcast locally in central Indiana on CBS4. The Patriots beat the Jets last week, a 22-17 victory. It was really a turnaround game for them. They had a couple where things seemed to be kind of going in the wrong direction, and then you beat the Jets, a team that had been outperforming their expectations this year. And Patriots can say maybe you got a little bit more on track, which, I mean, we've witnessed that with the Colts this year, Chap, thinking, oh, maybe they're a little bit more on track, but then the next week they come out and it's not so much. Really, I think these are two muddling teams, two average teams, both trying to make their way through an NFL season right now, and they'll have good and bad performances throughout.
Again, we'll get to the keys of the game, but who screws up?
The least or the most?
The least, because you figure both teams are going to screw up, but it's kind of crazy. You've got these two franchises that went so far and did so much with Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, and each one really has no clue what's going on at quarterback. None, long term. The Colts, we don't know what they're going to do moving forward, and Bill Belichick with his two quarterbacks, you move away from your first-round pick, and the fan base wants Zappe. It's not even close. So when you don't have a quarterback, it's just hard. So I just think that it's kind of a strange. It's kind of where these two franchises were before Manning and Brady got there, where you're searching. But these are two very ordinary franchises right now, and it's strange to see that's where they are.
My take on that situation with Mac Jones, and you guys can chime in, if you agree or disagree, but like there are quarterbacks that are taken in the first round that are seemingly pretty good right away. You know, you come out and you're a Joe Burrow, you're a Justin Herbert, you can see all the signs right away, and you're pretty confident in their future. There are some that take 2 or 3 years, like Josh Allen did. Josh Allen took 2 or 3 years, and then now he's unfreaking stoppable, it seems like. There's some that take 3 or 4 years, like Tua Tagovailoa. He was hurt the first couple years. This year, he gets out, and he's given great weapons from his front office.
That helps a little bit.
It helps just a little bit. But he comes out, and he looks really freaking good. So, like, Mac Jones, to me, showed a lot his rookie year. It was not too big for him, not at all.
He played in the Pro Bowl a few months ago.
Played in the Pro Bowl, which... Okay.
Make of that what you will.
Yeah, exactly.
But still,
I mean,
somebody's got to play.
It's stunning to me in some sense that people would consider moving on from Mac Jones based on the first half of this season. But I get the way the NFL is, that people look at the other side of the fence. They see greener pastures, like I mentioned with some of those other quarterbacks who got more productive a little bit earlier in their careers. And that's just a little puzzling to me, how things have so quickly soured on Mac Jones. You get a little bit more reason behind it, I guess, because Bailey Zappi looked the part out there that didn't look too big for him either. And he had fun. He's a kid with a funny name.
Is he Gardner Minshew?
He sung Stacy's mom on the sideline,
Right. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Is he Gardner Minshew? And I think that Mac Jones has a much better chance to be a better quarterback in this league long term. I think that's why Bill Belichick is sticking with him. That was just my take on their situation, Joe and Mike, is that I was really kind of stunned that already they were looking to move on from Mac Jones.
Well, and I mean, you made the investment of a first-round pick in him, and unless Bailey Zappi is just, crazy better than Mac Jones, and it's not even a competition, you stick with Mac Jones because of the capital that you sunk with him, if it's even close. But I mean, for a team with the Colts who, everyone's like, oh, got to draft a quarterback this year. You look at that quarterback draft from 2021. I think 5 were taken in the first round. Trevor Lawrence was deemed the next,
Andrew Luck.
Next Andrew Luck, and he's really struggling in his second year now.
Can't blame it on Urban Meyer, can we?
I don't think so.
Exactly. Trey Lance, he had the injury, so can't really judge him too much yet. Of all of Zach Wilson's not looking good in New York at all. Of all of them, all of a sudden, Justin Fields looks like the one who's playing the best football right now. So it just kind of goes to show that you can draft a quarterback, but that doesn't mean it's going to solve the problem for you. And it's still early on these guys. We're not going to know for another few years, as you were explaining, Dave. But it's just really interesting to see the different talents come out of that draft, the different landing spots. And landing spot and environment has so much to do with the quarterback's success.
We were talking in the press room about this, and this shows you how much lack of importance we place on this game. We were talking about the future and quarterback, and let's say that what the Colts do, what we all accept them to do, and that's draft a quarterback. They're probably going to get the 3rd or 4th quarterback just because people ahead of them are going to want quarterbacks. Detroit, Houston,
Carolina.
There's 3 right there.
So you're not going to get the guy, and if you get a guy you like, it's going to take a year or two. Peyton Manning was 3-13 as a rookie, so it's going to be a tough sell. Maybe not. Maybe the fan base will say, okay, you got a quarterback that you believe in. We'll be patient for a year or two. Now, if they keep going the route that they're going with, plugging people in, I think the fan base is going to say, we've tried this, we're done with it. But if you go with our young quarterback, it's going to take a year or two for this guy to get where he needs to be because you're going to have to put pieces around him. So like we've seen, like you've mentioned, it takes time when you hitch your wagon to a young quarterback.
And to be fair to Patriots fans who are interested in Zappe, I mean, Mac Jones has struggled this year. I'll be perfectly forthcoming. He's thrown an interception, at least one in every game. Only has 3 touchdown passes. Like, his numbers are not good. So from that standpoint, you can see why they would be like, have that itch to be like, well, what about this next guy? But really, you just need to take a step back and, like you said, kind of, Joe, with realizing that you put a first-round pick into this guy, like, to move on after just a year and a half.
Can you imagine the
Pro Bowl first year?
Can you imagine the damage you would do to a quarterback's psyche?
Yeah. If
you move away when he hits a bad stretch in year 2?
Just terrible. You can't do it. Can't do it. And to Bill Belichick's credit, he didn't when there was a lot of noise. Not that Bill ever listens to outside noise anyway. No. But the Patriots' offense this year is right about middle of the pack in scoring yards. They're like 17th and 20th there. Slightly better rushing offense than they are passing offense right now, and they've allowed 18 sacks on the year, which is 18th in the NFL, in fact. And they're also tied with the Colts for the most turnovers, 16. So, Chap, it was kind of what you were saying, which we'll get to more in the keys to the game. But they've shot themselves in the foot this year more often than not. And that is a part of the reason why the offense has struggled throughout the season. So,
yeah, because one thing Frank pointed, it's not rocket science, where he said that the Colts are 3-0 this year when they win the turnover battle.
Yep.
So that's what you have to do, and this team simply cannot get it out of its own way. So you can't trust them.
Nope. And if there's a little light at the end of the tunnel that you hope is not an oncoming train and is actually the exit there, it's that maybe Shaquille Leonard's getting a little bit more healthier and he can be in the games a little bit more than just 20 points.
He had nothing to do with that interception.
I know, but gosh,
it's incredible.
Come on, he got an interception.
And that's not mean it's not necessarily meant as a knock. I mean, Tyquan Lewis forced that.
He did. That's 100% on him.
But it just shows you that some players simply are around the ball.
The ball finds them.
It finds them, and he did. And good for him. That's what's been missing from this defense. It's played well until it needed something in the fourth quarter, and it didn't do it. But to play this well on defense and not have takeaways is really pretty admirable.
Yeah, and also, to be fair to the defense, that they can get a couple takeaways a game. It doesn't matter if the offense keeps giving it away.
Correct.
Which they have. So it's only one side of a two-sided.
The thing what had been killing this team on the turnovers, the first I keep a list of it. The first 14 giveaways led to 56 points, which is crazy. And these 2 turnovers this past week, led to no points, but you left points on the field. You left at least 6 points on the field with field goals because they were both at around the 20.
Yeah, 20 or 23-yard line.
Right.
They were both right around the red zone.
And maybe, one touchdown wins the game. So, but turnovers, I remember back in the day with Mike Martz and The Greatest Show on Turf, they might have led the league in turnovers because they didn't care. They wanted the ball back. Mm-hmm. Very few teams can be sloppy and careless with the ball and survive, and the Colts are not one of them.
New England's defense is 12th in points allowed this year, 19th in yards allowed, and they're doing a really good job, Joe, taking the ball away. They're the best in the NFL. I mean, if their offense has given it away 16 times, they've taken it away 16. So their defense, once again, it's kind of like looking into a mirror a little bit here, is giving them a chance, even though the offense isn't really doing much with it.
Yeah, league 16 takeaways, and they also have the 5th most sacks as well. So that doesn't sound good for the Colts, a team that struggled to block people this year and a team that struggled to hold on to the football.
And you look at who they have coming off the edge, Matthew Judon, 8.5 sacks, tied for the NFL lead. And we looked at it earlier. If your left tackle, Dennis Kelly, isn't in this game, then holy heck, that's gotta.
Well, they'll just come out and run the ball.
Just run the ball.
They'll run the ball 40 times.
Because the running game has been so good this year.
Correct.
Yeah.
With Deion Jackson and maybe Zach Moss.
That's right. Deion Jackson, Zach Moss. Jordan Wilkins back in there. 5 yards per carry. Jordan Wilkins. Give him the ball.
I went back and looked. For the first 3 years when Hines and Jordan were here, when Hines and Wilkins were here, Wilkins outrushed him. He had more rushing yards because that was more of his role.
Right.
Now, of course, Nyheim had the receptions, but don't forget Philip Lindsay. I mean, it may be the Denver game all over again because you're going to have Wilkins and Moss will have practiced twice.
Yep.
So yeah, it's not a good situation.
The Patriots also have running back Ramondre Stevenson, who's their top running back right now. He has 558 rushing yards, 4.9 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns. If you're looking for someone in the backfield, it's going to be him. And that's the Patriots.
That's about it. A few less players to watch than normal. It's more of a like. This squad is more of just like a bunch of decent players and not so much star power, which is probably why they're 4-4.
But Belichick's always known for taking away your best thing on offense and making you play left-handed.
What is that?
Pittman? You take Pittman away?
I think it's by default. It's Michael Pittman Jr.
But this is one of those where he says, we'll just play. Right. We're not going to worry. Let him play with both hands.
Yeah. Like if Jonathan Taylor's not playing, then it's got to be that.
Which means Alec Pierce might have a nice game.
There you go. 10 catches for Alec Pierce. We'll see about that. Keys to the game. We've touched on these already, but we'll go a little bit more in depth on them now. Joe, why don't you get your inarguable top key to the game here off, and then we'll get going with it.
Stop turning the ball over. I mean, it's unbelievable what these guys are doing. Ellinger just dropping the football. Jonathan Taylor being loose with the football. I mean, leading into the defender with the ball first. I'm sure that's not how he practiced that. Both fumbles last week came in scoring territory, as we mentioned. And they killed scoring drives, which is the next one. Finished drives with touchdowns. The Colts passed Washington's 25-yard line 6 times on Sunday and came away with just 1 touchdown. And that was the one that came after Darius Leonard's interception. So they didn't even drive the length of the field on that. So they got to score when they get down there. Between turnovers and settling for field goals is just killing this team.
Chap, we've talked about turnovers so much. I feel like I'm like beating a dead horse with it. But until you stop it, it's the most important statistic that there is. And like you said, Frank Reich pointed out, they're 3-0 when they win the turnover battle. Give yourself a dang chance right now, because if you turn it over, and if you turn it over especially when you're about to score, you're just stripping yourself of that opportunity. And opportunities are tough in the NFL, especially on the road, as they will be this week.
And we talked to Paris Campbell on Monday, I think it was, and we brought up the turnovers, and he said, we talk about the same thing every week. And it's been 8 weeks now. So at some point, I mean, it's like in Vegas, you always bet that streaks continue. So until these guys show that they're not just going to lay the ball down 2 or 3 times, you're expecting it. And why would you? They've had 21 fumbles. But they've lost 7, I think it is. If they're not more fortunate, they've got 12 or 13 fumbles. So they're playing with fire. This is not a team that can do that. And that's what's so crazy. Is I remember talking to the former Colts quarterback, Matt Ryan, when he said, when we take care of business and keep things semi-clean, we're not too bad. And I think it was no turnovers against Jacksonville. They scored 34. I'm not saying they're going to score 34 anytime the rest of the year, but if you just not beat yourself, and that's what's so frustrating, is whether it's a false start, whether it's a holding penalty, whether it's a fumble interception, these guys have proven they're not good enough to overcome it. And until they quit that, it's hard to see them coming out of this funk.
And Joe's point that the Colts passed Washington's 25-yard line 6 times.
It's incredible.
And only had 1 touchdown. That's you can't make a point any better than just with that 1 stat. Kind of on that note, though, Chap, were you encouraged, I guess, a little bit to see a Sam Ehlinger-led offense move the ball from time to time and kind of make some drives happen? I know Joe points out the touchdown only came on Leonard's interception, which wasn't on a drive, but they did move the ball throughout the field.
Stretch the field a little bit on 2 or 3 times.
I think there were some things that they could be encouraged about and to build on, and you would hope that Frank Reich and the offensive coaching staff can find some things that worked well, that Ehlinger did well with those weapons, and build upon that this week in week 2.
He made 4 or 5 plays that Matt Ryan could not have made.
Never.
Because he stepped up, avoided, got outside the pocket, and that's just a different quarterback. And that's why we were talking that his mobility would help the poor pass protection. And there were still a few times when he was I think he was sacked twice. Yeah. But yeah, it was encouraging. The only here I'll be Mr. Downer, to where sometimes the first game is the best game for a guy that's not played. Well, now people do have film of him, and they'll do whatever they can to not let him get outside. And and no one's better at it than Belichick.
I was going to say that's
so whatever worked for you against Washington, it ain't going to work against New England just because he's not going to let it.
That's a good point.
So, but we'll see. And that's not to disparage Ellinger at all. A couple of people wrote that he showed that he can be the franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
But based on what?
Yeah.
If you want to take that stance, then I'll put Ellinger's first start numbers up against Tom Brady's first numbers, and Ellinger's were better. Tom Brady was along for the ride when they beat the Colts back in 2001, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. But I think what Sam showed us is the game's not too big for him. He belongs in the NFL. But to say he belongs as what? We don't. One game proves nothing.
I think it was a great point that somebody made again in the media room, as we're again so focused on the game this week. We're looking more about the future, and maybe even with Sam Ellinger's future, whether it's with the Colts or elsewhere in the NFL. But with that start, he might have earned himself 10 years of NFL game checks.
It's not bad to be a backup quarterback.
No, it's great. You're Chase Daniel. You're fantastic.
Right.
You love life, and yeah, I think that you're right in the sense that it did not look too big for him.
Maybe he will be the long-term answer. You don't know, but to say you know something after one game, all you know after one game is that he belongs, and he can play at this league. And to say you knew that before the game, you're wrong, based on the preseason. So, but I think at the very, very worst, he's a quality backup that can come in and win you a couple games if your starter is out. Maybe he's more, but we won't know until the end of the season, if then.
I'd almost say that this game is going to tell you more about Ellinger than the last game because second game, like you said, they have film on him now in New England. Bill Belichick, he's going to throw stuff at him that he hasn't seen before. On the flip side, it's his second game now. He knows what it's like to start in the NFL. It's his second week as the known starter. Hopefully he's becoming more comfortable with it. He's thrown to Pittman and Pierce in an actual NFL game now. Second week throwing to the guys just in practice. I mean, what was it, Pittman who said before the start last week? He's like, I don't think I've caught a ball from Sam since training camp.
He had one completion in the first preseason game, first preseason season.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see whether it's, okay, Belichick's got film on him now and it kind of comes crashing down, or if Sam's able to kind of build on what he did, because although he did have the fumble, he didn't have the interception, and he didn't put the ball in harm's way through the air too often. There was the one pass that I think got deflected, and there was a chance that it could have been picked. It was not. I thought for the most part, other than the fumble, which I know is a big thing, but he didn't look like he was just throwing balls that were in danger left and right.
They didn't lose the game because of him.
Exactly. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see which way it goes on Sunday with Ellinger.
So stop turning the ball over, finish drives with touchdown. Finally, on the other side of the ball, Joe, what's about your key for the defense there?
You want to stop the run and make Mac Jones beat you. Mac Jones has thrown 7 interceptions this year, just 3 touchdown passes. You don't want to let the Patriots want to just run the ball all game. I think, what was it, last year against Buffalo? Mac Jones threw like a handful of passes.
40-some runs, or
it was like 5 or 7. It was I think it was less than 10.
Yeah, and if they could win that way, I think they would every game between
the Colts at Buffalo last year.
Exactly.
Yep.
Between Stevenson, who's playing really well, he's taken over that backfield from Damian Harris. But Damian Harris is no scrub in his own right, and if he's able to recover from this illness in time, he's a tackle breaker. He's a guy who it usually takes a couple people to get him to the ground. So stop the run, make Mac Jones beat you. And I'll just kind of add this in there too. You don't want to find yourself down multiple scores early and having to pass the ball time after time against this Bill Belichick defense. So by stopping the run, I think what you're also doing is stopping what the Patriots do best, which means less points are going to be scored by New England, and you're not asking Ellinger to orchestrate a comeback. You can kind of play it more like that Denver game. The lower scoring, the better for the Indianapolis Colts in this one.
So you don't want to be trailing at halftime for an 11th straight game. Is that what you're saying?
That's less than ideal.
It is, and if you are trailing, make it 3-7, something manageable where you can still
instead of
run
17-3.
Exactly, you can still run your ball, run the offense, and do the things you want to do without having to alter your game plan.
The story of Hancock Health is all about you and everything you need to live your healthiest life. Like Hancock Regional, one of the nation's safest hospitals. And an independent health network with over 70 doctors at more than 30 locations around East Central Indiana. We're growing and evolving to help further your story. And we're just getting started. See all the ways Hancock Health and you can work together to make health possible at hancockhealth.org.
The Colts and Patriots kick off at 1 o'clock, broadcast locally in Central Indiana on CBS 4. FanDuel has the Colts underdogs, 4.5-point underdogs.
How dare they?
Sakes alive. To the New England Patriots. And
Came
the
down from 5.5 yesterday.
It was 5.5 yesterday? A lot of people on Colts. I would be too, probably, with a number. That's a solid number. It really is. And
Will your prediction reflect that?
and we'll see about that, won't we? But last week, I last week was the first one that I didn't
picked the
know.
score last week in my column.
You did. It was 17-16.
17-16.
You picked the Colts winning, though,
Well,
didn't you?
yeah,
I'll give you that. I'll give you credit for that. Hey, if I'm going to take credit for the week one saying 21-20 when the final was 20-20, then I'll give you credit for that. I got to go both ways. I'll give credit and take it. But no, last week was the first game when I didn't really feel like I knew what was going to happen on this season. I felt like I really had a good idea of who this Colts team was. And I'll throw the Chiefs game out as just something that surprised me for sure.
In a given Sunday. That's all that game is.
Exactly. Now I'm at a point with Ellinger at quarterback that I really don't know exactly what they are yet. I thought that they could
I
kind of
hate the
rally the
unknown in
troops.
the NFL. I hate the unknown.
Yeah, and that's what it is right now.
Yep.
It's like at some ports it's exciting for fans. You know, they're like, hey, what's going to happen with
I'd rather
Ellinger?
have this than
I'd rather have this than what we knew.
Be bad.
And what if they thought what I knew, thought what I thought.
Those Peyton years, you just got numb to the fact that they were going to win. They were going to go 13-3. Now you simply don't know.
Exactly. It's tough. But the over/under, sorry to get back to that, is 40. So you're looking at like a 22-18 ball game somewhere around there is what what the FanDuel would be predicting. But I'll go first. Joe, you can go next, and Chap, you can wrap us up with your thoughts on this weekend's game. I think it's going to be tough on the road. I think the Patriots, especially if Dennis Kelly is hurt, can really have a field day attacking Ellinger. If the over/under is 40, and apparently it was 39.5 before like an hour ago, and then Joe, we came to this podcast and it was at 40, so we had to change that. The number's going up. I'm surprised the number's going up. I would definitely go under with that number. There's nothing that gives me the idea that
the Colts. I was saying they've been in an over game this year, and they would have with Jacksonville.
Yeah,
aren't the other 7 unders?
I believe so. Yes, I think all of them. So why go away from what's been happening all season? I'd take the under. I would definitely take the Patriots. I think 17-14. 4.5 just seems like a big number to me for a Patriots team that isn't all that offensively impressive. But like I said, if it's a rough day for the Colts offense, which very much it can be with Bill Belichick facing a rookie, well, not a rookie, but a guy making his second start in the NFL, I wouldn't be surprised if that 4.5 number hits. But I'll take the Patriots 17-14, and the Colts will come back to Indianapolis trying to figure things out yet again.
I got to take the Patriots in this one as well. And New England is a big deal, playing in Foxborough. Final score 20-16. I think the Colts are going to just keep kicking field goals because until they show that they can get in the end zone consistently, that's what I'm going to expect.
Chap?
I've got it circled, 20-16 New England.
Oh, there it is.
Joe stole my thunder. I expect an average day from the Colts offense, which is 16. Too bad you can't get to 0.1 and then find a way to do that.
Right.
I think I was looking, and the Colts are, I believe, 5-24 in Foxborough since they moved to Indy. So, and the only quarterback that's beaten them more than once is Peyton Manning. Mm-hmm. So it's just, I think the defense plays well. The defense played pretty well last week until they needed to, and then
until that last drive, and Terry McLaurin goes and makes a miracle catch. Indianapolis' own Terry
what
McLaurin.
A great catch.
This is my, you know what?
It was a good recovery by Stephon Gilmore, but he lost contact.
I think yes, he lost contact in that scenario. Like I think I understand. This is completely out of left field a little bit, I guess, as we're closing. But I understand what he's doing there, and I think you might even be coached to do something like he's doing because you have a blitz on, like you're getting toward the quarterback, and the blitz just didn't get home. And so you're supposed to jump shorter routes. You're supposed to stay shorter, closer to the line of scrimmage, because that's when the ball's supposed to be out. It's supposed to be out by then.
Not 10 seconds.
Exactly. But and Gilmore said that in the locker room post game. He's just he admits, I got to stay with the wide receiver no matter how long the scramble drill is for. And he's right on that. But he's also right in the sense that you got to play what the defense is supposed to do. And it's supposed to get to the quarterback. It's supposed to make it a quicker throw to get out. So I don't want to sound like I'm explaining away Gilmore, because you still, on that play, he's got to go up and get that pass away from Terry McLaurin. But I think it just gives a little bit more background as to what's going on in that play.
But I think the defense will play well enough against, again, a very mediocre Patriots offense. And if not, then heaven help them the rest of the year. If they can't depend on the defense to keep it winnable, this could get real ugly real fast.
I want to ask you, the guys, this question before we wrap up here. There's been a lot of negativity on this podcast, and for good reason, but if the Colts win on Sunday, it will be because blank happens.
Because they don't turn the ball over and they can run the ball reasonably well.
Yeah, because they take care of the football, and I think that's the most important thing, even more so than getting takeaways. If it's 0-0 at the end of the game,
sure,
takeovers, I think the Colts have a chance.
If it's 0-0 last week, they win.
Because I think the Colts have some more playmakers on offense, even without Jonathan Taylor, than the Patriots do. So I think that they have some ability there to make something happen if that's level on the takeaway fashion.
I don't trust that they'll do it.
Nope.
Yeah,
me
my
neither.
answer is big plays on defense or special teams, and came just short of saying a defensive or special teams touchdown, because those are just so hard to count on. But the defense has played so well, we haven't quite seen the big plays in terms of takeaways and turnovers yet. The Patriots have done it so much. I wouldn't be completely shocked if the Colts got some kind of a pick six, scooped a fumble for a touchdown. And in a game like this, we're all predicting pretty close games, that could completely swing it.
And again, I think it's so. And you mentioned, when we mentioned it, is don't let the game get away from you early. Keep it winnable. Keep it tight. And because the worst thing is when a struggling team that doesn't know who it is goes on the road and the game starts to get away from it, then it's hard to stop, the avalanche from happening. So keep it tight, get it into the second half, fourth quarter, and just don't beat yourself, for crying out loud.
And while we're in predictions, Shaq's going to punch one out this week.
There you go.
Punch one out, what?
Punch a football out.
Football. Fumble.
Shaquille Leonard will punch a football out.
So he'll actually have to do something to create the turnover?
Yes.
I like the ball just falling to him out of the air.
We'll give him something to complain about.
He doesn't need to have anything to fix. He'll find something anyway, is what I'm trying to say.
Just play well, and if you get beat, you get beat. But just play well, and don't sit up there at the podium and say, critical mistakes and self-inflicted and jumping offside. Let's just stop that, would you? Just see what you can be.
Colts Patriots, 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon, broadcast in Central Indiana on CBS 4. Join us Sunday morning for the Colts Blue Zone pregame show there at 11:30 a.m. We appreciate you listening here. For Joe Hopkins and Mike Chappell, I'm Dave Griffiths. Follow us all on Twitter at Colts Blue Zone to keep up with news and notes throughout the week, including injury updates. Mike is at mchappell51. Joe is at Roto Street Joe. I'm at DaveG_sports. We will see you next week on the Colts Blue Zone podcast.